Hey everyone, my name is Kel, Red Zone MTG, and today I have another Oathbreaker deck tech for you. Today we are covering Serra the Benevolent as she peeks her head over the box. Man, I love this old school Rebecca Gay box. I've had this since I was a kid, but I digress. Let's start talking about the deck. Alright, so Serra the Benevolent, like I said, is our Oathbreaker, and the signature spell is Teferi's Protection. Just to be a little bit more clear, the opening was a little messy, but I don't care. I'm keeping it in. Let's keep going. So Serra is a 4-drop Planeswalker, 2 of any double white, 4 starting loyalty. She has a +2 of creatures you control with flying. Get +1/+1 until end of turn. She has a -3 of create a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying and vigilance. Well, basically, she makes... where is it? She makes Serra Angels. But you can use any, angel token that you like. I like using all of these. You can use a straight up flying and vigilance token, like the one from Modern Horizons. Or you can do what I do, is you can just put in actual Serra Angels. Just, let everyone know that you're not trying to, get one over on them. You just treat them like tokens. Or you can use the Magali Villain of Full Art Glory Angel tokens from Unstable. You gotta have the matching artist. She also has a -6 of you get an emblem, like so, that says if you control a creature, damage that would reduce your life total to less than 1 reduces it to 1 instead. That is the card Worship, which is pretty cool to have that as an emblem, and that could definitely happen. All you have to do is play her, +2 her, and then you can immediately emblem the next turn if your opponents don't do anything about it. If you can tell from all of the angel-y stuff here, this is an angel tribal deck. It actually used to be one of my commander decks, and I've since converted it over to an Oathbreaker deck. I like it more as an Oathbreaker deck, to be completely honest. And speaking of which, let's start talking about the signature spell. So our signature spell is Teferi's Protection. It's an instant for 2 of any and a white. Until your next turn, your life total can't change, and you have protection from everything. All permanents you control face out. Exile Teferi's Protection, which doesn't really matter because, it's our signature spell. It's going to go right back into the command zone, and this card is so good for this deck because we have a lot of high drop angels, and we really want to protect them. And our deck's a little slow too, so protecting our own life total is also quite good. So let's get to the meat of the deck with our angels and angel-producing cards, starting with Entreat the Angels. This is a sorcery for XX and triple white. It says put X 4/4 white angel creature tokens with flying onto the battlefield, and then also has Miracle X white. If you couldn't tell, we're going to need a lot of angel tokens for this deck. So if you build this deck, I would say get your hand on a good number of angel tokens. And what Miracle does is you may cast this card for its miracle cost when you draw it if it is the first card that you drew this turn. And we really want to Miracle this. For the, brass tacks, it's not quite as good, but for the miracle cost, that is game-winning, basically. Speaking of angel tokens, we also run a Lumen Arc Ascension. It is a 2-drop enchantment, 1 of any white. At the beginning of each opponent's end step, if you didn't lose life this turn, you may put a quest counter on Lumen Arc Ascension. You can pay 1 of any and a white, and create a 4/4 white angel creature token. Like I said, man, you're going to need some angel tokens. Activate this ability only if Lumen Arc Ascension has 4 or more quest counters on it. So this card actually incentivizes our opponents to attack us, which is unfortunate, but if you drop this early enough, you can get a lot of quest counters on it, and we do have a way to proliferate in the deck, which you can, use to add additional counters to it if you already have at least 1 counter on it. I think if you can get this card going, once again, just like the Entreat the Angels, it is a game-winning card. Next up, we have our actual angel creatures, starting with Serra Avenger. She is a 2-drop, 3/3 creature angel for double white. You can't cast Serra Avenger during your first, second, or third turns of the game. She has flying and vigilance. So, a 3/3 flying for 2 with flying vigilance is quite good, but you have to play her on your 4th turn or later, which is, it's still not too bad. You just have to do other things on your first couple turns, which, we got things to do. Next is Resplendent Angel. This is a 3-drop, 3/3 flying for 1 of any double white. At the beginning of each end step, if you gained 5 or more life this turn, create a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying and vigilance. Like I said, man, gonna need a lot of angel tokens. It also says 3 of any and triple white until end of turn. Resplendent Angel gets +2/+2 and gains lifelink. So she kind of triggers herself to create angels, and we have some other ways to gain some life in the deck. Not a whole lot, but just as a 3/3 flying angel for 3, it's pretty good, and it also has a really good upside. Next is Gisela, the Broken Blade. And I'm going to pair this with Bruna the Fading Light. These cards kind of go together, but you don't really have to. Gisela is really, really good on her own. She's a 4/3 with flying, first strike, and lifelink for 2 of any and double white. She's an Angel Horror, and it says at the beginning of your end step, if you both own and control Gisela the Broken Blade and a creature named Bruna the Fading Light, exile them, then meld them into Brizella, Voice of Nightmares. And that card is super, super cool. I'll show you what that is in a second. Let's talk about Bruna the Fading Light. She's another really good legendary Angel Horror. 5 of any, double white. She's a 7-drop. She's a 5/7 with flying and vigilance. And she says, when you cast Bruna the Fading Light, you may return target angel or human creature from your graveyard to the battlefield. So if Gisela has already died, you can cast Bruna and bring her back to the battlefield so you can meld them. And they meld into Brizella, Voice of Nightmares. This, Lovecraftian horror. I love this. This is so, so cool. It is a flying, first strike, vigilance, lifelink, 9/10. Your opponents can't cast spells with converted mana cost 3 or less. And that hosts a lot of removal spells. A lot of removal spells. Everything from Maelstrom Pulls to Swords to Plowshares. If you can get Brizella online, it's like game over. I've almost never seen this happen. In fact, I've straight up never seen this happen. But if you can, it's super, super cool. You gotta live the dream. You gotta try for it. Next is Linvala, Keeper of Silence. She is a legendary creature angel for 2 of any, double white. She's a 3/4 flying. Activated abilities of creatures your opponents control can't be activated. She's just kind of a prison card, and she's just a really solid, efficient angel. There's a lot of 4-drop angels you can run instead of Linvala, but if you have her, you should definitely run her. I think she's really, really good, and she protects you from a lot of, weird shenanigans. Next is another prison angel with Archangel of Tithes. She's a 3/5 flying angel for 1 of any and triple white. As long as Archangel of Tithes is untapped, creatures can't attack you or a planeswalker you control unless their controller pays 1 for each of those creatures. And then as long as Archangel of Tithes is attacking, creatures can't block unless their controller pays 1 for each of those creatures. As an untapped creature, she is so, so good. Discourages people from attacking us. If we have the Lumen Arc Ascension on the battlefield, it kind of aids in that, helping us not lose life so we can get, counters on our Lumen Arc Ascension. I really like this card a lot, and as a 4-drop, I think it does a lot of work. Next is Angel of Jubilation, 3/3 flying angel for 1 of any and triple white, another 4-drop angel. Other non-black creatures you control get +1/+1, and guess what? All of our creatures are non-black, so she just pumps our whole team. And then she says, players can't pay life or sacrifice creatures to cast spells or activate abilities. And that is symmetrical. That applies to us as well, but we don't really care about that. We're not running anything that does any of those things, so she just kind of hoses over our opponents, which is really, really good. Anthem and a Hate Bear type effect. Next we have the Archangel of Thun. I love this card. This is a flying lifelink, 3/4 for 3 of any, double white. Obviously, she's an angel. Whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. And we're not running any infinite combos with this in the deck, but she's just a really, really efficient angel. We have another angel coming up that gives all of our angels lifelink, so we can, get a lot of counters. And we also run some stuff that proliferates, so you can, double all of those counters. Just a really solid, efficient angel. Next is Baneslayer Angel, a classic. It is a 5-drop, 3 of any, double white, 5/5 angel with flying, first strike, lifelink, protection from demons, protection from dragons. I said demons a little weird, but in any case, just a really, really solid, efficient angel. If you're running an angel deck, you gotta run the Baneslayer. Very similarly, we run Lyra Dawnbringer. So this was my original commander for this deck, back when this was a commander deck. She's a flying, first strike, lifelink angel for 3 of any, double white, so basically the same thing as a Baneslayer angel. However, she also pumps your team. Other angels you control get +1/+1 and have a lifelink, which is really, really good for cards like Resplendent Angel and the one that we just talked about, the Archangel of Thun. Lyra Dawnbringer, once again, if you're running an angel deck, you run Lyra Dawnbringer. Next up is the Admonition Angel. This is a really cool angel that, she kills stuff. Well, sort of. So she is a 6-drop, 3 of any, triple white creature angel. She's a 6/6, which isn't too bad. She has flying. She has landfall. Whenever land enters the battlefield under your control, you may exile target non-land permanent other than Admonition Angel. And then when she leaves the battlefield, return all the exiled cards back to their owner's control. So she kind of O-rings every single time you play a land, which is really, really good. And as a 6/6, she's kind of hard to remove. And if they're removing your admonition angel, that means they're not removing your other really sweet, big, scary angels. And, you know, that's just pretty good. Next is a classic, an absolute classic. One of my favorite cards of all time, a Chroma, Angel of Wrath. Shout out to the Weird Cards Oathbreaker YouTube channel. That guy over there is also a fan of a Chroma. So what is she? She is a 6/6 flying, first strike, vigilance, trample, haste, protection from red, protection from black, angel for 5 of any, and triple white. She's an 8-drop. She used to be one of the premier reanimation targets back in the day. You know, you would, you know, bin her and then reanimate her. For this deck, we're just going to be hard casting her, and when you do, it's really, really sweet. I love a Chroma a lot. And then finally, for our angels, we have Avacyn, Angel of Hope. She is an 8/8 flying, indestructible for 5 of any and triple white, so the same cost as a Chroma, and then she gives all of your permanents indestructible. If you can land an Avacyn, it's basically game over, especially since we're running Teferi's Protection. So if they somehow, you know, have a Swords to Plowshares and we have our Planeswalker Oathbreaker out, they try to Swords our Avacyn and we just, you know, Teferi's Protection, pop her out of existence, and then come back and, you know, we're still good to go. This deck definitely takes a little while to ramp up and get going, but once it does, it is a house. It is really hard to stop. So next is a couple little creatures that help protect our angels, starting off with Giver of Runes. It is a 1/2 core cleric for a single white. You can tap it and it says another target creature you control gains protection from colorless or from the color of your choice until end of turn. So just a really, really good card to help protect all of our big, scary angels that are going to be obvious targets for other players. And I'm running, you know, a lot of Modern Horizons cards in this deck since Serra is the Oathbreaker, kind of getting that Modern Horizons vibe there. And the next is Loyal Retainers. I really, really like this card. I bought this one when all of the Amonkhet Invocations prices dropped. And I was able to pick this up for, you know, not too much at all. I think I paid like 20 bucks or something for this. So what does it do? Because it's, you know, quite hard to read. It is a 3-drop, 2 of any, and a white. It's a 1/1 Human Advisor. And it says, sacrifice Loyal Retainers. Return target legendary creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate this ability only during your turn before attackers are declared. And we are running a lot of legendary creatures, such as Bruna and Gisela, Linvala, Lyra, Avacyn, a Chroma. You know, being able to get your Chroma back is pretty crazy, or getting your Avacyn back if they somehow are able to put it into the graveyard. I really like Loyal Retainers in this deck, if you can, you know, get your hands on one. Next, we have the Sword of Truth and Justice and the Sword of Sinew Steel. Like I said, we got some Modern Horizons flavor going in here, but I think these cards are both fantastic in this deck. We pump out 4/4 Angel tokens with our Oathbreaker, so being able to suit them up with swords is pretty good. So the Sword of Truth and Justice is the one that I've alluded to a few times in this video. The equipped creature gets +2/+2 protection from white and blue, which is pretty good, you know. Getting protection from Swords to Plowshares is quite good. And whenever the equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you put a 1/1 counter on a creature you control, then you proliferate, and that proliferate can hit, you know, your Planeswalker, it can hit our Lumen Arc Ascension. It is just a really solid card in the deck. And then just a really solid card for Oathbreaker is Sword of Sinew and Steel. This one, the creature gets +2/+2 and protection from black and red, which is also pretty good. Black is also a pretty heavy removal color, so getting protection from it is quite good. And then it says, whenever the equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, destroy up to 1 target Planeswalker and up to 1 target artifact. Not just that player controls, just any of them. So you can hit someone who is a little bit open and then blow up someone else's Oathbreaker, which is super good. I think this card is also very, very good for Commander. Next up, we have some cards that let us draw cards, which is pretty hard to get in mono white, honestly. First up is Endless Atlas. This is an artifact for 2 of any, and a tap, you can draw a card. Activate this ability only if you control 3 or more lands with the same name. Guess what? We're going to be running a lot of planes, so being able to activate this is quite easy. Very, very good card for the deck. Very, very good card for mono white and mono red, especially if you need to draw a lot of cards. Next is Coercive Portal, another really good one for mono white and mono red. Will of the Council. At the beginning of your upkeep, starting with you, each player votes for Carnage or Homage. If Carnage gets more votes, sacrifice Coercive Portal and destroy all non-land permanents. If Homage gets more votes, or the vote is tied, draw a card. So this, you know, basically lets you draw cards, or sometimes it just blows up the whole board, which can also be quite good for us because we are running a pretty slow deck. If you're in a really good position and you don't want your board to get wiped, just don't play the Coercive Portal, or just wait until you get Avacyn or something like that. And then finally, we have a classic, Mind's Eye. This is a 5-drop artifact. Whenever an opponent draws a card, you may pay 1. If you do, draw a card. yeah, just really good. Draw cards anytime your opponents draw cards. We have a lot of ramp in the deck, so we should have some mana left over unless we're dropping our big angels, in which case, we're feeling pretty good about ourselves in that situation. Next up, we have our removal package, and we're running a good number of removal in this deck because we are kind of slow. We have Swords to Plowshares and Path to Exile. These cards are no-brainers in mono white, or in any white deck for that matter. If you're running white, you should probably run these. They are just, staples in any format they are legal in, and, if you can get it, the sweet Rebecca Gay Path to Exile art is quite cool. Next is Winds of Abandon from Modern Horizons. Like I said, we got some Modern Horizons cards in this deck. This card is very similar to Path to Exile, except it's a sorcery. It costs 2, but it has Overload. So it says exile target creature you don't control. For each creature exiled this way, its controller searches their library for a basic land card, puts it into the battlefield, tapped, and then shuffles their libraries. And you can overload for 4 of any and a double white, and then you exile all of your opponent's creatures. And then they get lands for each one, but still, quite good. Next we have On Thin Ice. This is a snow enchantment aura. It's kind of a weird card. For 1 single white mana, enchant snow land you control. So we are running all snow-covered plains. When On Thin Ice enters the battlefield, exile target creature an opponent controls until On Thin Ice leaves the battlefield. So this is kind of just like another Swords to Plowshares or Path to Exile. I think this card is super good if you're running a lot of snow-covered lands. And we are running a lot of snow-covered lands. And once again, Modern Horizons, man. Getting a lot of Modern Horizons stuff going on. Next we have Oblivion Ring. It's Oblivion Ring. Basically for 3 mana and a white enchantment, you exile any non-land permanent until it leaves the battlefield. Or until Oblivion Ring leaves the battlefield. It's just really good catch-all. Get rid of whatever pesky permanent you need to get rid of. Next we have Wrath of God and Austere Command as our board sweepers, other than the Winds of Abandon. Wrath of God is a classic, just destroy all creatures that can't be regenerated for 2 of any, double white. We've got the classic Quentin Hoover art with there's a butt. Yep, there's a butt. And then we have Austere Command. I love this card a lot. Other than the fact that it has an angel in its artwork, we're running an angel tribal deck. It is a 6-drop, 4 of any, double white. Sorcery, choose 2. Destroy all artifacts, destroy all enchantments, destroy all creatures with converted mana cost 3 or less. Really good for this deck. Or destroy all creatures with converted mana cost 4 or greater. A really common one is destroy all creatures with converted mana cost 3 or less, and destroy all enchantments, or destroy all artifacts if your opponents are running something pesky like Ensnaring Bridge. And a lot of our creatures have a converted mana cost greater than 3, so, this can definitely be a one-sided board wipe, or at least a way to, save your guys and get a bunch of your opponent's creatures. And finally, for the non-land cards, we have a bunch of ramp. You probably noticed we have a lot of high-costing angels in the deck, and we're compensating for that by running a lot of ramp. So first up is Land Tax. This is an enchantment for a single white. At the beginning of your upkeep, if an opponent controls more lands than you may search your library for up to 3 basic land cards, reveal them, put them into your hand, and shuffle your library. Oathbreaker is a multiplayer format. There's a very good chance that someone's going to be controlling more lands than you, especially if you play with people who like to, do land ramp. A little bit of rampant growth here, a little bit of Kodama's Reach, and Land Tax is super good. Next is Worn Power Stone. It is a 3-drop, comes into play tapped, but you can tap it for 2 colorless mana. Any mana rock that adds more than 1 mana is very good in our deck because we need all the mana that we can get. Next is Coalition Relic. 3-drop, tap it for 1 mana of any color, or you can tap it to put a charge counter on it. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, remove all charge counters from Coalition Relic, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool for each charge counter removed this way. It's actually really funny. You could tap it, put a charge counter on it, and then smack them with the Sword of Truth and Justice, and then proliferate the charge counter, and then the next turn you get 2 mana from the charge counters, and then you can also tap this for a total of 3. It doesn't come up often, but when it does, it's super sweet. Next is Smothering Tithe, and this is a card where you're going to need a lot of tokens as well. Basically, you need a bunch of treasure tokens. What this does is it's enchantment for 3 of any and a white. Whenever an opponent draws a card, that player may pay 2. If the player doesn't, you get a treasure token. I think a lot of people already know that this card is super powerful. If you're running white, you should basically just be running this card. Next is Solemn Simulacrum. I guess this is another creature in the deck that's not an angel, but, I think of it more as a ramp card. It is a 4-drop, it's a 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, search your library for a basic land, put it on the battlefield tapped. we're getting the planes. When it dies, draw a card. You know, it's the sad robot. You put it in your deck. Next is Thran Dynamo. 4-drop, artifact. Tap it for 3 colorless mana. If you're running a lot of big stuff, put it in your deck. And this one is Gilded Lotus. It's basically the same thing as Thran Dynamo, except you tap it to add 3 mana of any one color. If you're running a lot of big, beefy things, you should probably put this in your deck. Typically, I don't run this much ramp in an Oathbreaker deck. Oathbreaker is a very fast format, and we need to pump out our angels as fast as possible. Finally, we have our lands, and we do run a good number of lands in the deck because we have a lot of high drops. We're running 23 lands. Let's start off with Hall of Heliod's Generosity, legendary land. Tap it for a colorless, and you can tap one of any and a white and tap it and put an enchantment from your graveyard on top of your library. And why would we want to do that? Well, we have some really good enchantments in our deck, you know, like Oblivion Ring, or On Thin Ice, or even Lumen Arc Ascension. Definitely worth running if you can pick one up. Next is Karakas, not banned in Oathbreaker. Legendary land, tap it for a white, and you can tap it and return target legendary creature to its owner's hand. So you can bounce your opponent's legendary creatures, or if someone's going to do some shenanigans with our own legendary creatures, you can tap it and return our own legendary creature back to our hand. Maybe even return Bruna back so we can play Bruna again to get her cast trigger again. You know, Karakas is just super good. If you have it, put it in your white deck. Next is Flagstones of Trocare. This is a legendary land. Tap it for a white, and when it's put into the graveyard from the battlefield, you may search your library for a plains, put it on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle your library. It protects you a little bit from land destruction, and, you know, once again, you don't really lose a whole lot putting this in your deck because it doesn't come into the battlefield tap, and you can tap it for a white. Next is Nixos, Shrine to Nyx. Really, really good card for a mono-color deck. It's a legendary land. You can tap it for a colorless mana, or you can pay 2 and tap it. Choose a color, then add to your mana pool an amount of mana of that color equal to your devotion to that color, which is the number of mana symbols in the permanents you control. And we have a lot of white mana symbols, so Nixos tends to add a lot of white mana to our mana pool. Next is Core Haven, another legendary land. You can see we're running a lot of legendary lands in this deck. You can tap it for a colorless mana, or you can tap one of any and a white and tap it and prevent all combat damage that would be dealt by target attacking creature this turn. And like I said, we're a pretty slow deck, so having cards like Core Haven really help prevent early damage to us so we can, you know, get to the mana that we need to cast our big angels. Next is Ameria Sky Ruin. This is kind of a long game card. It's just a land. It's not legendary, which is kind of weird, honestly. Comes into the battlefield tapped. It's our only land that comes into the battlefield tapped. You can tap it and add 1 white to your mana pool, or at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 7 or more planes, you may return target creature from your graveyard to the battlefield. So super, super late game, if you have 7 planes, you just start getting your angels back, which is really, really good. I love the inevitability of Ameria. Next is Homeward Path. This is just a land. You can tap it for a colorless mana, or you can tap it and each creature gains control of all creatures he or she owns. So if your opponents are big on stealing your stuff, stealing your Avacyn, play your Homeward Path and get it back. Next is Arcane Lighthouse. This is really good if you're running a lot of removal, and we are. You can tap it for 1 colorless mana, you can pay 1 mana of any, tap it until end of turn. Creatures your opponents control lose Hexproof and Shroud, and can't have Hexproof or Shroud. So, you know, if they are suiting up a dude with a lot of Hexproof and Shroud, you know, got their Lightning Greaves going, and we really want to swords their guy, you can just play Arcane Lighthouse and get rid of that Hexproof. Yeah, super sweet. And then finally, we just have Strip Mine. It's Strip Mine. Tap it and add 1 colorless, or you can tap it and sack it to blow up a land. Yeah, we're going to blow up the really annoying lands with this one, like Mazavith or Glacial Chasm or anything like that. I think Strip Mine is a must-have in any deck, and I think that kind of goes without saying. And then finally, we just run a whole bunch of snow-covered plains. And that's the video, everyone. Let me know what you thought in the comments down below. If you liked my Serra the Benevolent Teferi's Protection Oathbreaker deck, you gotta get that Serra Angel action in there. You notice I didn't include it in the main deck because it's, you know, it's been outclassed by a lot of angels these days. But having one as a token, I think, is actually pretty sweet. But I digress. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. It really helps out, honestly, especially for very small channels like mine. Regardless of what you do, thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see y'all next time for more Magic the Gathering content. I'll see y'all then.